least in the semis, because I know the semis at least were also best 2 out of 3. But so this is a best 2 out of 3 match.
So I'm going to go ahead and start bringing up the second replay, but we'll introduce the players, then you can go over the second match, as I believe the game we're bringing up now is actually the third match of the series. I was unable to find the second one, as unfortunately, with the internet being so old, some of the links were dead, and I couldn't get that game itself. So let's go ahead and get into the second match here. Let me make sure I have the right background for it. There we go. So this one will again be a PvT, and we'll get right into it. So we have here at the top as a green teal color, and that is, if you want to introduce yourself once again.
This is uG-Whear.
And here at the 3 o'clock position is SuperCondomUser playing as the purple Terran. It's worth noting that this is the older version of Lost Temple, the original one. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit before going into the second game about some of the other versions of Lost Temple you maybe remember coming out afterwards.
Yeah, so Blue Wolf, briefly ran through these replays with me before this, and when he loaded this game, I was like, this map doesn't look right, because I thought that the expansion, for the 12 o'clock position I thought that the minerals for that were, higher up, further north. So I would not have thought the map looked like this. So apparently CompUSA or Gamefixx decided to run with the very original version of Lost Temple for this tournament, which is defective in various ways. I mean, the main one I remember is that the 6 o'clock position mineral distribution is just terrible. Your workers have to run farther to actually get to the minerals, and so it's a huge disadvantage to be at the 6 o'clock position on this map.
Yeah, indeed so. And also, do you want to go over that second game? Because the second game, I think you said, was not actually on Lost Temple.
Correct. So it was a best 2 out of 3, and so we're looking at game 3 right now. As you can deduce, given that there is a game 3, I lost game 2. So game 2 was on Snowbound, which is an island map with the snowy terrain. It's a snowy terrain map, and I honestly don't remember the game very well. I mean, I obviously lost that game. I don't think it was a very long game. I mean, the main thing I remember is that I had known from practicing for this tournament that map hurt my eyes for whatever reason, because the brightness of the snow on the terrain bothered my eyes, and so I remember requesting, please, can we not do this map because it hurts my eyes? And they were like, nope, we're doing this map. So I complained a bit about the map choice, and I don't remember that being the reason I lost. I just don't remember it very well. But that's the main thing I remember about game 2, is that I lost and that I complained about the map choice because it hurt my eyes.
So it looks like the openings so far are pretty standard. We have the refinery for the Terran, along with the Terran barracks that is producing a single Marine to clear up that scouting probe to deny you any further vision inside the base. And on your side, you are building up the Protoss Cybernetics squad has just finished, and I'm assuming you're probably going to go for the same build you went last time.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, one nice difference is that this game I actually have my probe in his base to see what he's up to. In the last game, my probe never made it into the base, I believe.
You're doing a very good job of keeping that probe alive too. He's determined. He's got a mission. Gain information.
Yep.
Go probe, we believe in you.
But, spoiler alert, I imagine that probe's going to die, but we'll see.
You should have faith.
True, yeah. If only I could, run that probe around and also, build up armies at the same time and, come rescue. Yeah.
No, probe, no! Poor man.
But that ledge there where the probe died, that's, another unfortunate component of this map for this matchup for me, because the Terran can obviously just park siege tanks on that ridge there, looking right over the exit to my base.
Indeed so.
So, I mean, needless to say, I can't remember what I was thinking, all this time, but my probe was in the base long enough to maybe get me suspicious that he was going to go for a command center, just since a second factory hadn't been thrown up yet.
Yeah, I would assume so. And it looks like you're going just 2 gates with a robo, updating your range right now as you attack his ramp to try to see what he has. And we theorized, we're not 100% sure, that you likely saw the command center from the vision granted from the tank actually attacking the Dragoon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it certainly seems like it could have been.
We have tried, when we were watching this map previously, to just simply turn on his vision to try to see what buildings he had actually scouted. But for some reason that doesn't work in the 1.09 replays. It just shows an empty base up there, so...
So far it looks like a similar build to the last game, getting Dragoons and Observers to see what's going on.
So I do have a... Go ahead.
I was going to say that in Protoss versus Terran, I mean, I tend to prefer a macro style, so I always like just to get lots of bases and just massed units. But for whatever reason, I'm, not trying to expand early.
So I do have a joke for you. So why did the Zealot cross the road?
I don't know why.
To give his life for ire.
Well, I was just trying to remember the Zealot's lines to see if any of his lines, would relate to that.
So do you happen to remember any corny StarCraft jokes at all, or?
Oh. I don't know if I remember any StarCraft jokes per se. I mean, there were definitely some StarCraft players who were really funny people. I mean, but I can't remember too much of the gimmicks, I guess.
So one thing we talked about, which I'll go into as well, is that your APM in this game is 140, SuperCondomUser is 143. That's far less than like the 300 to 400 that pro Korean StarCraft players do today. But they have very little redundancy. So in other words, you had 116 effective APM, and SuperCondomUser was 114 effective APM. So during this time period, if you want to talk a little bit about click and movement speed, like for instance, did you ever attempt to try to click everywhere to move as fast as possible, or what that was like, or anything you can remember in terms of how you tried to develop your speed itself?
I mean, the only redundant clicks I would do intentionally were at the beginning of the game, when it was pretty common for players to, while their workers are mining, to just sort of click around in their base, when nothing else is going on at the very start of the game. So I would do that, just to keep my fingers moving. But I wouldn't, once the game actually got rolling, I wasn't thinking about clicks, so I wouldn't be trying to do extra clicks for the sake of APM. Like Blue Wolf mentioned, a lot of these top players had really high APMs in the 300 range, and I was probably a little bit insecure about that, thinking why, made me feel really slow. And I think I was just objectively slower than, most top players.
I don't think so. I think that a lot of the Korean scene at this point was maybe getting into the 200 to 300 range, but
Really?
as I think I also mentioned, it seemed like there was kind of two scenes. It seemed like there was a North American scene that existed that all of us kind of competed in as part-time gamers, and then there was this whole Korean scene out there that we maybe met once a year at the World Cyber Games that kicked our asses.
Yeah. The atmosphere was definitely, the Koreans dominate everybody else. That's putting it a little bit too roughly, but it's not far from that. Certainly the Koreans dominate the Americans. There were also some really good, back then. There were some really solid European players as well, but the attention was mainly on the Koreans.
Yeah. Well, for the World Cyber Games, when the Americans actually met them, generally any foreigner was still the underdog at this point.
Yeah.
So it looks like you are trying to do some dropship shuttles again, relying very heavily on them for the mobility, as SuperCondomUser does have a pretty good defense here of his space.
Yes.
It's also worth noting that he expanded a lot earlier than you did, and it doesn't look like you've been able to do any damage so far.
Right. Yeah. At this point, it really looks like he's ahead. I mean, because he did expand earlier than me, and I haven't hurt him. To try to counteract that advantage from getting the faster expansion. And his position on the map is just not very good for me either, because again, his base is just sitting on that ledge where he can threaten me.
It does look like you are getting your trusty Dark Templars, though. So.
Yep, they were very helpful in the last game.
And it looks like you're preemptively blocking your ledge here, as this I assume you recognize as being a weakness to your current base setup.
Yeah, in this matchup, on Lost Temple, I mean, every natural expansion on this map has a ledge overlooking it that Terrans can drop siege tanks or whatever else on. So this is always something people are thinking about on this map. And of course, his proximity to me makes the threat of a drop all the more serious.
So were there any players that you particularly feared in this tournament, or anybody that you thought might have prevented you from taking home the gold?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember in detail how confident or fearful I was about. I mean, I don't remember how I thought I would do in this tournament. But there were certainly lots of players who, I was definitely worried about losing to. I mean, I played. So this is the finals. In the semifinals, I played Froz, a Terran, and so Froz, he was excellent. I mean, he went, I guess I don't need to give his history, but I mean, he was an excellent player who I'm sure I was very nervous in playing him. Worried that he would beat me, and I think that was a match that went to 3 games versus him. I was also fearful about playing Yosh. I mean, so his handle in this tournament was it Blasted Sharp or
Blast Sharp? Yeah,
that was Blast Sharp. Yeah, but so that was a smurf for Yosh. So fortunately, I never actually had to play him in this tournament. But I remember, well, I mean, I imagine I would be anxious about playing him because he was a player who I thought was quite good. And there were, I mean, I can't remember everybody I played in this tournament, but I played a lot of people who, the match where there were close matches. I mean, I remember playing Blue Wolf's brother, Wizard, or POC squared. Right? And,
yeah, Power of G squared.
So that was I don't remember exactly how that game went, but I'm sure that was a difficult game. And I remember I had to play Maynard. That was probably a difficult game.
Looks like he has your ledge. This is looking pretty bad for your natural expansion here, but you do have these zealots. It's going to be pretty close. But it looks like you got it. And it looks like he's taken the 6 o'clock position, whereas you have taken, I guess this would be the 10 o'clock position?
Yeah.
So resource-wise, it looks like you're slightly ahead on food.
Yeah, so it looks like I have more expansions than he does at this point. Not that they're being mined that intensively, but it looks like I'm starting to get ahead on the macro game. He's obviously relying heavily on drop ships, so I guess that's giving me more of ability just to to take the map.
Indeed so. It's kind of unusual. I mean, most Terran players, or a lot of them that I've seen before, would generally do a much more try to push the middle style and try to kind of branch out from their base and push toward yours. Especially at such close positions, you could easily start to siege up and take this expansion on the way. So it does seem very unusual that he's going with this very drop-oriented style.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense why he would at least start with it, given that, my natural expansion has that ridge right there he can drop on. But the fact that he's kept with that strategy this long does seem a little strange.
And obviously, since the second map was a island-based map, he probably would have used the same style there as well. And so it could also have just been he got kind of into the mode of doing drops from that, and it ended up working against him in this one. But,
yeah, maybe. Of course, in the first game, I mean, he did aggressive. He tried to lock me in there at the very start. And that didn't work out too well. So I don't know if he.
Oh, that dropped him badly. Oh.
Oh well, the turret's gone, so maybe there can be more where that came from. We'll see.
It does seem like there's a lot of green on the map at the moment. You do have, it looks like 4 bases to his 2. But it does look like your ledge up here is in trouble once more.
Yes, yes. I mean, what I generally tried to do in this matchup is just stay ahead on the economy game and try to maintain more bases than the opponent, so that I can outproduce him.
So one thing which is also different that maybe you can also elaborate on is that modern day Protosses always use Arbiters and Stasis as their late game units of choice. They try to cut the Terran army down for the win. Did you ever remember using Arbiters at all, or ever thinking that they were a worthwhile unit to build?
Huh. I didn't. I certainly didn't use them very often at all. I mean, and I wouldn't be surprised if I never used them in this tournament. I mean, I don't remember using them in competitive play. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I know I would build them, in games occasionally, but I certainly didn't rely on them as a strategy. So, I mean, maybe that's because I tended to prefer the macro style of trying to outproduce my opponent, whereas, using Arbiters does require a little bit more fancy footwork and micromanagement.
Yeah, it was harder to do with the lower APMs we had at the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I would... I mean, given, I guess, that a lot of players did have faster APMs than me, I mean, I think that... I don't think that the APM software detected... It didn't count the keyboard, did it? It was just clicks?
No, it counts keyboard as well. Actions
per
minute.
Okay. Because I mean, I did try to use, take full advantage of hotkeys, and not just the numerical hotkeys too, but the F2 through 4. I think if I remember correctly, you could hotkey screen locations to F2, F3, and F4, and so I used that a lot. I would hotkey my main base to F2, the natural to F3, the next base to F4, and so that would really help build units faster. Just shift from one base to the other through those hotkeys.
So I want to go back into the game real quick. It's looking like you're in kind of trouble here. So the green blobs have started to decrease as your natural here has been taken over by siege tanks, as has this base here is no more. You do have a mining base at this location, and a mineral only, but they don't give you any gas at both of these. So you have this one starting to take off, but it looks like the SuperCondomUser has really started to stabilize and cut down on the number of options that you have available to you.
Yeah.
This drop-off style is actually being pretty effective in terms of retaking the map and allowing him to catch back up in the resources. So he currently has 165 unit count to your 152, so starting to pull a little bit ahead at this point.
Yeah. So he has definitely neutralized 2 of my bases through the ridge drops there. I guess the nice thing is that he himself hasn't increased much, expansion-wise, except for that island, which isn't really an ideal spot. But
looks like you have a little drop here and a little bit of a skirmish. I think ideally you probably would target the dropships to try to take them out, but it looks like you actually won it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he for some reason picked up and left because he had some more units in some of those dropships.
I guess he's worried about reinforcements streaming down. So it looks like your 9 o'clock expansion is starting to pick up. You do have an assimilator built, but nothing mining it just yet. Meanwhile, the island for SuperCondomUser seems to be going pretty well with a lot of saturation on this Vespian gas. He really wants this badly.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's definitely, looks like he's securing that island. But as far as the vast majority of the map, the land routes and everything, he's really still quite contained within his own base, which is making it easier for me to branch out and take more expansions throughout the map. Oh, but I guess, okay, so the island still is vulnerable.
Yep. And it looks like you have shuttle speed now, which is going to make your harassment of it much easier to accomplish. I don't think I've seen you use Storm yet, though. Did you tend not to use that much in the PvT matchup?
Huh. You know, I don't... I think that I would.
I've seen Archons. I just haven't seen anything else.
Right. So, I mean, I wonder if... I mean, I definitely like Storm, so... I mean, I would often, merge an Archon if once the Storm is depleted. Sometimes if I would have an abundance of gas, I would just build Templar to make Archons, because I wouldn't want too many Templar just sitting around, because they're not really effective in mass groups. So, yeah, I certainly wasn't averse to using Storm, but I haven't seen myself use it, this game yet.
Looks like you're about to get some Zealot bombs here.
Yeah.
So in terms of resources, it looks like it's about even in terms of the supply count. His island expansion going down here is going to really hurt his resource flow, but it doesn't look like you're going to be able to quite take it out, the entire island itself. But the only other mining expansion he has since his natural just ran out is this far mining one. Meanwhile, while he still has prevented you from utilizing your natural, which is pretty well available if you were able to take it back, but you've kind of ignored it, it looks like, and just gone for everything else in the map.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I just gave up on that and figured, hey, there's plenty more for the taking. And I also tended, as I do in this game, to just throw up more gateways at my expansion, so I'm not even relying as much on the 12 o'clock position at all for output of units.
Yeah, let's see if the upgrade counts as well. So it looks like you're 2-1. He's at 0-1, so it looks like you're ahead in upgrades as well. Still Archons, no Storm yet. Is he gonna 200? he might want to do it. No, it looks like he's just a spectator, just around for the ride.
Oh, is that he's cast one?
No, 200 still. Oh.
At this point, I'm probably in just full macro mode. I'm pumping out units and sending them in, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not even watching those units because I'm just elsewhere building more on the map, so I'm not watching the battle there.
And it looks like once again, while the supply count isn't that far, you have about 130 to 130. He has a lot just hanging out on the ridge, taking a nice little smoke break again.
Yeah, and he's not really bringing in. He doesn't really have any new income. He just has the island, but there's not even that much SCVs there. There's the good old Maynard transfer.
Yep, getting that Nice and
Yeah.
saturated right from the get-go. One of the disadvantages of taking the island is you couldn't easily get his SCVs over there.
Yep. I think that was, I guess, Maynard started that, or at least has the reputation for starting that move of just, dragging, selecting 12 workers and just dragging them to a new base. Called the Maynard transfer.
So about equal supply counts, and it looks like he's going to go for a drop here to try to even up things by taking out one of your major mining bases. He does also have a command center here that he's currently not using. I guess it's just getting ready and doesn't want to start using it too soon. He wants to keep this game as close as possible. And it looks like this base is pretty much going to go down. You do have a few units trying to come in here, but
there's some blobs coming up the ramp there. I don't know if that's going to be enough to...
Oh yeah, there it comes.
Maybe
here goes. Here's another one. Is he going to storm?
It's not really, but now I'm just going to be hurting myself by storm, so... Maybe I'm just going to use the Templar to,
He's like a cheerleader. He's like moral support.
I'll use the Templar to shield my zealots from the spider mines. Maybe.
Yeah, that's it. That's what he's there for. And now he's just going to become one with the probes. The overseer, watching to make sure they work well.
But yep, at this point, it looks like I'm just containing him. Knows if I'm bringing him money and he's not, then there's not much he'll be able to do. It's like in both this game and the last game, Dark Templar ended up being very useful for me, especially early on in the game to help get that initial edge with certain attacks with Dark Templar. But after that initial phase, just turn to macro and outproduce.
It indeed seems so, especially because of the fact there's only so much energy on those comsats, and it doesn't look like that he's ever built a single science vessel the entire time. So no EMP and no detection, which is also something unusual, as I think most Terrans nowadays would use science vessels for the EMP in the late game. Here comes here comes a Protoss. Oh no!
Ah!
He was gonna do something. He had aspirations.
Yeah. I did like Psionic Storm, right? I mean, I like that spell. I mean, I'll admit, I don't know if I ever used, Hallucination in any sort of competitive play, but I did use Storm.
So it looks like it's about 80 to 143, so you have about double the supply, and the only mining base he has left, unfortunately, is the island. He does have this one here, which has a nice viewpoint of your new and upcoming community.
I think that, because I played Froz in the semifinals, same matchup, my Protoss versus his Terran, and that was also ended up being a 3-game match. And I think, at least in the final game with Froz, it was actually these very positions, me at 12, him at 3, and it was Dark Templar that helped me in that case, because he was focusing more on siege tanks than vultures, and so the DT helped me.
Looks like that was it for this game. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the nightmare scenario for PBT, is you always hate being at that 12 and 3 position, regardless which side you're on, although I think being at 3 is slightly worse. But yeah, those good games. That one went on for a whopping 28 minutes and 35 seconds. With that, you are now, of course, $10,000 richer. and you gained an immense amount of esports fame, which has unlimited value.
If I did, I didn't. Yeah, I don't know how much that fame got around to me, but
You would go on and qualify for WCG 2002 later that same year,
oh,
and that would take you to the grand finals again, which I believe were in Korea once again.
yep.
And you had a lot of things going for you. You were at the top of the game, considered one of the best American players. What kind of happened from there?
Yeah, well, so the 2002 WCG World Cyber Games, that was my last WCG. So I did keep trying. So in 2003, I went to the qualifiers, which were in yeah, they were in California then, just like in 2001 or two. But in any case, at the following WCG, which would have been my fourth, I failed in the qualifiers, so I didn't qualify for WCG that year. And I mean, I don't remember exactly what was happening at the time, but it was probably a confluence of factors. I didn't qualify for WCG. I was also coming along further in college, and I needed to devote more of my attention to college than to playing StarCraft. So it was at that point that I was actually trying to work out what am I going to do for a career.
So why didn't you become a professional StarCraft player? You're right here at the top of your game, though. So quit college, go pro.
Yeah, no, I mean, it crossed my mind as something like a fantasy, but I don't think I was ever convinced that it would be feasible. I mean, on the one hand, I was a little fearful that I didn't really have. I mean, obviously, I was blessed to be successful for a period in the U.S. as far as the U.S. goes, but actually playing competitively for a living, I didn't really feel that I quite was at that level to do that successfully, or at a minimum, I thought that it would be quite a risk to do that.
All right, so you went to college, and then what happened from there?
Yeah, well, so I basically ended up moving into something that maybe is slightly more lucrative. I went into philosophy, and so so basically I went from that's what I majored in college, and then I went from one grad program to another. So to make a long story short, I stuck with philosophy, and that's what I'm doing now is teaching philosophy as a college instructor. Yeah, that was I guess that ended up being my calling. I love interacting with ideas and both philosophy and also theology. I was really into theology as well. And so I ended up sticking with that. And so that's still, all these years later, what I'm still working at is trying to make ends meet as a teacher.
All right. Cool. So if you went back to the past again and you could make that same decision, would you still go for the college route?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, because, like I said, I did think that it would be quite a big risk to try to go, to make a living off of gaming. But another factor, too, was I didn't know if I quite had it in me to do it either, in the sense that, it requires a lot of will to just be at the game 24/7 with the kind of intensity that it takes to succeed at the top. And so I think that was part of it, too, is that I didn't know if I was prepared to really devote myself that intensively to the game. I mean, I obviously had devoted myself to it. I mean, I was playing the game all the time. But to devote myself even more to it, I also think I ultimately didn't want that for myself either. Okay. So it's sort of the combination of, fearfulness about skill, but also not really feeling that I was, that my soul was into it as well.
All right.
But, yeah.
Very understandable. Do you have any advice for those who might be experiencing StarCraft for the first time now? 15 years after we old school grandpa people had played the game, experiencing it now in a remastered HD version.
Well, whatever it is, it won't be as good as it was for us back then. No, I mean, no.
That ship has sailed. The best times are behind it.
Oh yeah. It couldn't possibly be as good as it was. But no, I mean, I'd say, hey, go for it. This is it was and remains a great game. I mean, there's there's a reason that Blizzard is coming out with a with StarCraft Remastered, because the game was that good, right? That they're doing that. So I definitely recommend anyone get into the game. If any of you haven't gotten into StarCraft yet, I certainly would recommend the game to you. It's a great game, but just it in the end it is only a game, right?
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I think that even for myself, I have very fond memories of it, and it's just a game that has really held up against the test of time. It's something that you can play over and over again and have so much different strategies every single time you play different games that never quite play out the same way, that it just keeps you hooked.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. I would I mean, I haven't played it in years, but if I were to reinstall it, I know I'd enjoy playing it. So I'd love to play it again. It's a great game.
Do you have any interesting stories about any players or any social events you've done, or anything else that you want to share with us?
I mean, I was kind of an introvert. I mean, I definitely had StarCraft buddies and friends, but I wouldn't consider myself a very social gamer. Back in the day when I played, so I don't have a lot of entertaining stories. But there were some great people. It was really my last WCG, so the third and last one that I did, which I guess was on the heels of this. It was fun. So I mean, for that last WCG, the Team USA StarCraft players were myself, Froz, and Wizard, Blue Wolf's brother, and so that was a fun trip, and it was fun getting to know those guys better. They're both really great guys, extremely friendly. Just great people. I remember that Froz, who, I mean, I should probably say, since I mentioned earlier that I ended up beating him in the semis in this tournament, I should go ahead and say, I mean, I considered him a better player than me, and he did better than I did in Korea. He beat Slayer's Boxer twice in Korea, which is really cool. And he was sort of joking, like, "Hey, I'm going to go ask him for an autograph," after having beaten him. He was a great guy, and
do you remember what map that was on? I think it was Snowbound.
I don't know, because I wasn't able to see those games, so I didn't even see him. I just remember hearing that he ended up playing Boxer twice and beating him, which was really cool. But I played Boxer in the previous WCG because I was in the initial round robin with him, and he beat me. So that was the only time I ever played him. But yeah, Froz was an excellent Terran, great guy. And then Wizard was also really cool to hang out with, and he was a really funny guy. He was also kind of, at least in my own memory, kind of an underdog in that he wasn't necessarily expected to win in the qualifiers. But I mean, he beat me. He got second place. Froz got first. I got third place in the qualifiers, and he was really funny. And he was, I guess, prone to was it, is narcolepsy the term? I don't know, but there's some weird events. We were in Korea, and Wizard is just up in the middle of the night, walking around the room in his sleep, making weird noises.
Yeah, terrifying sleepwalking. I know as a kid, I was traumatized. He would come into my room sometimes, and one time actually beat up a lampshade. So I'm lucky to be alive today. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't beat or try to beat up you.
Yeah. It's how he got his StarCraft skills. He had to sell his soul to the devil, and as part of that deal, he got sleepwalking, where he would do weird things at night. But now that he's no longer plays StarCraft, he's kind of gotten over that. So anybody out there who's listening, don't worry. He's gotten better.
Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. So, any other things that you want to comment on, or anything else that you think might be an interesting tidbit that people out there might want to know?
I don't know. It's time flies. StarCraft is a great game. It's I haven't played it in years, but it's still very fond memories for me. So I guess I hope that anyone who's interested in watching this is similar, that it's an important part of their life, because it wasn't a very important part of my life, and so I'll admit I played it too much. I probably should have devoted more of my attentions to other things, but I was very blessed to to be able to do what I did with it. So it's a happy point in my life. So I hope it's a happy point in everyone else's life.
I mean, it definitely shows. I mean, you came out here after being retired in 2003, 15 years later, to come and co-cast your finals games with me. So,
Well, yeah, yeah. Like I said at the start, I appreciate you, you know, tracking me down to invite me to that, because it's a pretty cool opportunity. It's good to reminisce.
indeed so. Well, thank you very much for your time, and it's been a pleasure getting a chance to cast these games with you. And I hope anybody out there watching, you enjoy the StarCraft Remastered that comes out tomorrow from when you're watching this, and have a good remainder of the day.
Yep. See ya.
All right. So as I said, there's one more bit left. We ended up deciding to look at some of the old photos from some of the events he was at to see if it jogged any memories or any other stories he wanted to tell. So we have a little bit left where he'll go through that. Sorry, there's no show match. Maybe sometime in the future, as neither of us have StarCraft Remastered yet, because we have to wait like everybody else till tomorrow. But here goes the last little bit, a little encore for you. So we're back again, just after a short break, and I have some photos here of what the StarCraft players in 2001 and 2002 look like. Some of these provided by uG-Whear himself, very kindly. This one here is from the Million Man LAN. You can see, I think it's McNasty on one side, and Hurting Time, I think, is the other player. But in the center there is uG-Whear, and I don't know if you have any comments about the Million Man LAN or anything else that might have gone on.
Yeah, I mean, so this must have been shortly after the Gamefixx tournament, right?
Yes, the first LAN event was after that online tournament occurred.
Okay, yeah, because I think I remembered that it was at this event where someone from CompUSA actually gave me the check.
Oh, well, they didn't pay you until then? It was kind of delayed?
I don't remember what the time gap was, but I'm pretty sure it was someone at this event who actually gave that to me. But yeah, that was a cool tournament. And yeah, I think that McNasty there, to my, well, from our perspective, to my left, won. I think he won that. So he was a really good Terran. And so I think I got third in that event. And so it was a fun event, and it was funny because Duty was there, or I mean, he used to go by Duty, or ILNP. He was a really funny guy, and he was there, and he was also in the Gamefixx tournament. And after I got third, he was talking to me in front of a group of people. Said like, "Oh, so I guess we know that you cheated during the Gamefixx thing because you only got third here." And so it was kind of funny, and I just had some silly comeback. I was kind of like, "Well, what does it say about you?" I didn't know what to say, but it was kind of interesting because the guy who got second place in that tournament, I didn't know him beforehand, but he was Zerg, and he beat me twice as Zerg. And I think one thing that didn't hit me until this tournament was I don't know if I had played any Zerg in the Gamefixx tournament. So that was something that didn't hit me until then, is that I hadn't actually played Zerg in that tournament.
Kind of dodged that matchup, which I think was.
Yeah.
Do you think it was Zerg favored at the time? I thought it was kind of Terran favored.
I don't remember having any opinions about the balancing itself, but I mean, I would always pick Terran against Zerg, and so it was a matchup that I was happy with. So I don't remember feeling like it was a bad matchup for me, but I think I remember thinking, well, I mean, I wonder if I sort of had gone through the Gamefixx tournament basically by relying on Protoss versus Terran and Terran versus Protoss, which was just sort of an interesting factoid in my head at the time.
So I think at this tournament you were actually playing for a clan called Eon. Do you remember anything about that team itself?
No.
Not at all?
Honestly, I don't remember. I mean, in the Gamefixx, my handle was uG. I don't remember that.
You just kind of moved from one to the other, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I never. I mean, again, this is all coming through the fog of memory, and so.
I think it was
I'm,
kind of common, like switching teams because there wasn't like a professional contract. You weren't signed to a team at that time, like you might be in a current pro
right.
gaming
I mean,
team.
yeah. Again, my memory is, my memory is not perfectly reliable, but my recollection is that clans were never that of a huge deal for me, and that it didn't seem like a lot. There was a lot turned on. It's like, okay, I chose to, create my name this way, and now I'm hanging out with other people with similar tags in their names, but it never was really a huge thing for me.
Indeed. So we'll go ahead and move on then from the Million Man Land. We have a couple from WCG 2002. So bring this one up here. And this one, it looks like it's just you next to. Do you recognize the other player?
No, I don't know who that is.
Uh,
So not someone from Team USA.
I do assume that that is the official Team USA or jacket, or is that just a generic one that WCG gave to everybody?
Yeah. So that was it. So that looks like that's a sweater that was generic that everybody got. So it's not a Team USA thing per se.
Okay.
Yeah, WCG one.
So this one here, you have a group picture where it has yourself, my younger brother Wizard, and Froz, and that looks like some nice jackets there.
Yeah. Those were. Yeah, that might have been Team USA. Because
Very
I
styling, but
yeah. I'm guessing that must have been right when we arrived in Korea, but I'm not positive about that.
then we have this one where you're playing inside of a booth, and I think that this one you said also has Froz obstructed, so he's kind of behind the pillar there. If you can't really see, you might be able to tell by the hair, the
Yeah,
black
yeah,
spot there. It's kind of peeking
yeah,
out.
on the left edge there. I'm pretty sure that's Froz because the at some point they wanted to do I guess a live cast game, a 2-on-2, and so that was Froz and I playing against a pair of Koreans. Um, and so that's what was going on there, and we lost, unfortunately. But I don't remember what the nature of that game was. I mean, it wasn't part of, I don't maybe there was sort of a separate 2-on-2 tournament running concurrently with the main, 1-on-1 tournament. That might have been what was going on.
Okay. It also could have just been an exhibition match or something like that, I assume.
Yeah. I mean, I remember there were more teams involved. It wasn't just our two teams, but I don't remember the details.
So I do have a picture of SuperCondomUser, the one who actually created the account, not the one who you ended up playing against. But this is Kevin, the one who had registered for the CompUSA Gamefixx online tournament and attending the WCG USA 2004. He is in the center of this picture here, and I just wanted to see if you recognized him, if it brings back any memories.
Yeah, I mean, from looking at him, I don't recognize him. I mean, in the back of my mind, I thought that I had met Kevin at some point, but I don't remember where that would have been. So I'm really not sure if I ever actually met him. But in any case, I don't recognize him. So I mean, I didn't want to say it during the webcast, the game casting earlier, just to spoil it. But it was kind of a downer to have an opponent with that name in the in the final matchup. So I mean, I was telling Blue Wolf that when I was telling my parents that I'd won the tournament, afterwards I showed them a link to a web announcement, and they see SuperCondomUser, and they're like, what is this? So it was kind of awkward, but hey, it was his name, not mine.
Yeah, indeed. For anybody else watching, we do also have Froz near the very left. I think it's two from the left. Anybody else you recognize from this picture at all, or were these people all the new school players, the next generation coming up?
I mean, I don't recognize any other than Froz. I mean, the guy to the right, the SuperCondomUser. I mean, that I almost feel like I've seen him before, but I don't know who he would be. So no.
All right. So I think that's all the pictures I have. So thanks for staying extra for this little bit, and
Yeah, no problem.
take care.
Yeah, you too. Thanks again.
All right, so I think that is basically the end of the cast. Thank you all for attending. The videos of this, should you have missed any of them, will likely be on the following channel sometime probably tomorrow. I've actually taken off from work tomorrow to also enjoy StarCraft Remastered. So I hope I'll see you online perhaps, and thank you again for attending this look at the StarCraft scene 15 years ago. Everybody have a good day and take care.